asked you guys on Instagram what are some genres to look out for in 2025, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the top 5 most popular answers. Well, the first genre we're going to look at is our most requested one, and that is going to be hood trap. So hood trap is an underground genre of rap that's been growing in popularity from social media over the last year. And some notable artists are Xavier Sobase as well as Subi Bobby. So first we're going to be breaking down the melody, and then we're going to be breaking down the drums. Now starting with the tempo, we're going to be going up to 160 BPM. Now in terms of melody, we can go in a lot of different directions, but a lot of hood trap sounds mainly sound simple and dark. So the simplest and darkest thing we can start with is a low piano note being held out. The next thing I'm going to do is layer this piano riff on top of it. I'm using the harmonic scale to make it sound more dark, and I'm also adding reverb and delay to make it a bit more ambient. And the last thing I'm going to add is some strings, just doing a really basic chord progression. And this is going to add more dark elements to the beat. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, simple. Now let's move over to the drums. Now the main drum sound you're gonna hear in hood trap is that snare, and that's gonna be playing a dotted 8th note rhythm that sounds like this. And then we're gonna add a clap that's gonna be on the 2 and 4, and we're also gonna add some accent snares that goes in between the main snare pattern. Next thing we're adding is the 808, and that's gonna be following that dotted 8 snare pattern as well. I'm also gonna add some open hi-hats, and that's gonna emphasize those beats even more. In this genre, there's not usually any kicks, but you can add some kind of stomp or gunshot effect on those downbeats. And one last thing you should do is drive that 808 because they really like that distorted and crunchy sound. The next genre we're gonna look at is breakcore. Now breakcore is a genre of EDM that started in the 1990s. It blends a bunch of other genres like jungle, hardcore, and drum and bass to create a really intense and chaotic sound. This genre is fast, so we're gonna bring the BPM up to 170. Now in terms of the melody, this one's gonna be fairly simple because the main focus of the genre is the drums. In terms of the sound selection, we're gonna look for things that are ambient and analog. So my main instrument is gonna be this pad playing this chord progression. The next thing I have is a respace following the chord progression and also adding some slides. And the last thing I'm adding is an analog lead that's just playing a simple melody. And that's all I'm doing, so let's move over to the drums. Now the drums for breakcore are really unique because we're gonna solely rely on sampling. Now the first thing we need to have before we start is a drum break. And if you don't know what that is, a drum break is basically a really short drum solo. The most popular drum break is the amen break, but I'm gonna use this one I found here. Now instead of using the drum break just like this, we're gonna chop and rearrange it so we get a more chaotic sound. In breakcore, you're gonna hear a lot of stutters and rolls, so we're gonna manipulate our drum sample to do that as well. And to spice it up even more, I'm gonna add some drum fills. And the very last thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna take those melodic elements and we're gonna have them match up with those stutters and rolls, and we're gonna add some glitch effects on top of that so we can really bring everything together. The next genre we're going to look at is Botanica. Now this is a really interesting and unique genre. Botanica is a genre that combines grainy and modular sounds with organic ambience to get that feeling that you're in the middle of nature. Honestly, the best way I can describe it is it sounds like when you're turning on a video game console. It's a very experimental genre and it really pushes the boundaries when it comes to sound design. So we want a slow tempo here, so I'm gonna go to 83 BPM. Because the genre is very nature-esque, we want to have a melody that matches that calming sound. I want that romantic anime massage in the middle of a garden kind of sound. So I started with these Studio Ghibli chords, a lot of major 9s, and I'm playing this on my acoustic guitar and my piano. The next thing I'm adding is a very simple melody on my ukulele, and I'm bringing up all that strumming and plucking noise because that's going to be added texture for the beat. So once we have that, we can focus on the elements that really make Botanica unique, which is the ambience and the textures. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is adding a bunch of nature sounds. So sounds of birds, the forest, rain, water drops, and once we have all of that, we can really start to feel immersed. The next thing I'm going to do is add some interesting melodic textures. So the first thing I'm going to have is a piano, and instead of using a normal reverb, I'm going to put it in a convolver where the impulses are the sounds of a forest. And because of that, we can get this really bubbly texture. I'm also reversing that clip and speeding it up so we can get this sound as well. The next thing I'm going to do is play some kalimba, just some random notes and not in any particular rhythm. Then I added some delay to make it a bit more chaotic, and then I'm also speeding this up and bringing it up an octave to create some really grainy textures. And then all I'm doing is fading these elements in and out so it doesn't sound too busy. And there's no drums for this one, so we're pretty much done.
Let me know if you need me.
next genre we're going to look at is UK Garage. UK Garage is a subgenre of EDM that started in the UK in the 1990s. It takes inspiration from genres like house, jungle, drum and bass, and R&B, and since then it has re-emerged into popular music today and is taking more modern influences. For the BPM, we're going to be going to 130. Now, in terms of melody, it's pretty diverse at the moment, but a really popular sound right now is starting with some plucky chords. So for the chord progression here, I'm using some minor ninths and some diminished chords to give it some depth, and the rhythm is very syncopated to give it that bounce. The next thing I'm going to add is a chop vocal, and this is really going to help give that EDM feel. And the last thing I'm going to add is a bass. In this genre, basses can range from soft and muted to wobbly and grimy, but in this case, I'm going to be going for something a bit plucky. Now, UK Garage has some really distinct drum rhythms, so we're going to start off really simple with the snare on the 2 and the 4, and then we're going to add some hi-hats that are going to be hitting the offbeats. The next thing I'm adding is another set of hi-hats, and that's going to do a lot of syncopation, and this is where you can really start to hear that UK Garage sound. I'm going to offset these secondary hi-hats, and that's going to add a bunch of swing to the beat, and now you can really start to hear the difference. And I'm also going to add some secondary snares to accent that syncopation as well. Now for the kick, you can either do a spaced out pattern, but in this instance, we're going for more of a club vibe, so we're going to do a 4 on the floor kick instead. And the last genre we're going to look at today is private school piano. So private school piano is a subgenre of amapiano that originated from a South African producer known as Kelvin Momo. Now, amapiano is known to be a genre that's very energetic, but private school piano takes those elements and they make it more laid back and more chill, which is why it's also known as soulful amapiano. For the tempo, we're going to go to 110 BPM. Now, the melody is where private school piano really gets its character. In terms of the instruments, we're going to be using more live sounds, like something that you would hear at a lounge. So I'm going to start with this Rhodes, and we're going to play a very soulful progression. I'm using a lot of 7th chords here to really give that jazzy vibe. The next thing I'm doing is layering this really simple saxophone melody, and the last thing I'm going to add is some vocal hits to really give that amapiano feel. Now, in terms of the drums, we're going to be doing some pretty standard amapiano drums. We're going to start off with that soft kick, and that's going to be playing every quarter note. For the clap, I'm going to put that on the 2 and the 4, adding some shakers to get that rhythm, and then adding a bunch of percussion to give it that bounce. The last thing I'm going to add is that classic log drum. That's going to be following our progression, but once again, remember, this genre is supposed to be laid back, so this time I'm taking off a lot of high frequencies from the bass to make it less intense. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I love making these genre breakdowns for you, so if you want to see another video like this, make sure you comment below some genres you want to see next. And that's about it for now. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.
If you have any suggestions, leave a comment. If you like this video, leave a like. If you really like this video, subscribe. If you didn't like this video, leave. Just leave.